Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Francisco Uribe, and I'm the product lead for the computer vision and AutoML platforms. In today's talk, I'll be delighted to introduce the computer vision platform, and then I'll turn it over to our friends at UiPath, Infogain, and Automation Anywhere so that they can describe how they're using our technology to make their robotic process automation technologies better. So the mission of the computer vision team is to enable our partners to build the next generation enterprise AI solutions. And this focus on the enterprise has led in the last few years to significant breakthroughs into the application of AI across different verticals. Like for instance, we have industries applying our technology to detect damage in their facilities for predictive maintenance use cases, or media and entertainment companies using our technology to implement intelligent content management systems. And the focus of this talk, companies are using our OCR and natural language understanding technology to derive insights from their data, provide structure, and automate complex business workflows. Now, to recap, the computer vision platform is comprised of two sets of products. The first set of products is our pre-trained products, and the second one is our customizable AutoML products. The Vision API allows you to build models without, or use models without having to code. It's completely plug and play into your application, and all you have to do is just query these APIs with a REST API. It's great and perfect for generic, well-understood use cases. And our AutoML products can be customized with your own data, leverage behind the scenes Google's state-of-the-art neural architecture search, hyperparameter tuning technology, so that you can build high-quality models with it. And this is great for more complex, specialized use cases. Now, these two categories of products provide you a fairly comprehensive set of tools to implement computer vision models. But we know that AI tools are only part of the equation in what it takes to build enterprise AI. Enterprises today are still facing significant challenges wrangling their data and seeking buy-in to actually deploy these models at the last mile. So for that reason, in Cloud AI, we determined that it was critical for us to democratize this technology, to partner with key companies so that jointly we can solve the enterprise's deepest challenges. And one key challenge that most enterprises face today is that 90% of their content it's completely dark and unstructured and requires significant amount of human effort to be able to understand and integrate into a business workflow. So for that reason, yesterday we introduced Document Understanding AI. Document Understanding AI is our partner-led solution to help you understand structured data, things like invoices, legal documents, tax forms, and then automate business workflows and improve your decision-making. For instance, processing an invoice today is a very, very tough task. Today, when you get a physical invoice, a human needs to type the fields directly into an ERP system. Now imagine having to do that across tens or even hundreds of thousands of invoices. It's a lot of work. And it's very error-prone as well. With our technology, we can turn a scanned invoice into a digital structured JSON with all the fields, so that then together with our partners, we can integrate this data into a downstream business process, like a P2P business process. So this is, we believe, very transformational. Now, at a high level, Document Understanding AI helps you structure from your unstructured documents with the goal of implementing better organization of your data, enable search, and on top of that, you can automate repetitive business workflows and improve decision-making. And now to explain how this technology is being used in a real business use case in the RPA space, I'm delighted to invite Mark, Director of AI at UiPath, and Ravi, Senior Director of Digital Services at PepsiCo.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Francisco. So I'd like to start off by talking a little bit about who UiPath is, in case you're not familiar with us as an organization. We are today now we are the fastest growing organization in enterprise company software history that's growing at the pace that we are. We have over 2,000 enterprise global customers that are using our platform on a regular basis. And we have over 1,500 UiPath employees that are growing daily inside our organization at a pretty steady clip. We have over 300 partners with whom we work with in a very large, rich partner ecosystem that enables our platform to be as robust as it is. We're invested by multiple investment partners. We currently have $400 million worth of investment, $3 billion valuation, and we are recognized as the category leader for RPA, Robotic Process Automation. From a sponsorship perspective, we have great sponsors, including Excel, Capital G, Kleiner Perkins, and Sequoia as examples of the companies that are backing us in this space. And just real quickly, from an overall perspective, what is robotic process automation and what's UiPath's specific view of this? It's really about enabling the easy deployment of scripts that can take the work that humans do on a daily basis and automate those tasks on a highly repeatable basis. So these tend to be rules-based scripts that we can basically then mirror what the human does on the screen, working with applications and moving data from one application to another. The way that we make it very simple is that we work at that UI layer, hence UiPath. So the integration doesn't require us to work, if we don't want to, necessarily at the API layer, or worry about going down into the services layer or the data layer to be able to perform this type of integration. So if you want, you can integrate UI layer or API layer as well. The other compelling aspect of why our customers are finding so much benefit from the platform is it's a low-code environment. So business users can actually start to work with our platform today to simulate maybe a particular process area that they want to automate, and they discover that they can actually do that process without having any type of programming skills and take that process and advocate it inside the organization, ultimately to be implemented as part of a production effort. So one of the interesting things that's happening in the RPA space is kind of this beautiful marriage between RPA and AI. And so AI is really going to enable a next generation capability of smart robots, so that fundamentally we can shift from robots that are basically performing those rule-based tasks that are highly repetitive in nature, and ultimately transition that to more of the increasingly complex tasks that exist inside an organization that can't necessarily be codified by rules and that require more cognitive type of capabilities. So when we think about AI or machine learning, how can we use those capabilities like forecasting and probabilistic modeling and scoring and deep learning type of capabilities, including computer vision, to enable robots to be able to have these new skills, to be able to do better work, more work inside of the enterprise. So we see this as an inflection point, actually, and it's fundamentally going to transition the industry from this rules-based structure to a very intelligent-based robot that, again, can take on more of the tasking that we do inside of enterprises today. Now, if we take this and we actually apply it to the space of document processing, so every enterprise in the organization deals with large volumes of documents of varying types throughout the organization. And what's important about those documents is that key business data is locked up in those documents. And sometimes those documents are in print format, and we have to digitize them to be able to get that data in some type of electronic format. In other cases, we have a digital document that we can get that data from. But the important thing is, how do we get that data out reliably and quickly so that ultimately we can move from data to insights? Because that's really what's important to businesses. I want to unlock that data from my documents. I want to be able to get insights and do further knowledge mining up against that data. So what we can see here is an example. What role does a robot have in that? The robot can help automate the process of collecting documents within the environment. So it can ingest documents from an email box as an email attachment, maybe invoices coming in from an email. If there's a file storage system, it can inspect a file system and fetch documents from there. If there's a blob storage type of environment, it can also pull documents from there. So that's a great skill for a robot to be able to go look for the documents that we need. One of the benefits that we can do is once we have that document, then we can assess the document features and know, for example, a particular document type is an invoice, and that we need to process that invoice in a particular way. So we provide a lot of capabilities, working on the capabilities within our platform to be able to look at the pre-processing aspects of that document, extracting the data from the document, and then any type of post-processing activities to be able to get that the data fit for downstream into production-based systems like an SAP, for example. So the value there is that when we extract that data, we get that data in a very common data format, in a kind of an intelligent JSON structure, which gives us key value pair information, the extraction of table level details. In addition to that, we know the confidence level information that comes from the algorithm relative to how well the extraction was performed. And that's really important because we can set a lot of rules up against that type of data to be able to treat high confidence data differently than perhaps low confidence data. Also, when we have this data, there's a lot of things that we can do with respect to leveraging classifiers. So we can have document classifiers that can find a document that's an invoice or a healthcare-based document or a benefits-based document. So it can treat those documents in a different manner. We can also use that data naturally to be able to support additional machine learning models around scoring algorithms or specific custom fit-for-purpose models that are appropriate for a particular business domain or a functional area. And then essentially, once we've got that data, the robot can actually work with the human to be able to accomplish a mission. So this is all about humans and robots and AIs basically working together. The way that they do that is through a human-in-the-loop process. So as we'll demonstrate later today, we can actually extract that data, and if it doesn't meet that minimum threshold level of the confidence details that come in that JSON payload, we can go into a human-in-the-loop process so the human can actually see what was extracted and then correct or validate certain features from that data extraction before it goes to downstream systems. After that process, the robot can pick it up again and populate Google Sheets or go into SAP or go into a variety of different landing sources that would include perhaps some data repositories for the data mining side. So from an AI and RPA case study perspective, where this individual use case is for invoices, but the capability can support documents of many types. Invoices traditionally tend to be manually processed, so there's a lot of effort associated with getting the invoice up and running. And invoices are interesting because they have many different multiple feature sets. So we see machine-generated text, we see handwriting, we have objects on there like signatures and the logos. So it's a consistently hard problem to be able to actually process these documents at scale. And so we're changing the game by working together and bringing our investments in AI and our RPA platform and our partnership with Google through Google's document understanding AI capabilities to be able to help reduce the costs and errors associated with that manual heavy lifting of extracting data or swivel chair when I rekey the data into a terminal or into a screen. And then I can, as a result, benefit from increased efficiency and greater speed, and then start to look at things like fraud and fraud detection in some of my invoices that might be in a particular market where we've detected higher fraud. So the approach is to extract content from the forms and tables, and then basically allow that human-in-the-loop process system to begin. And we'll actually demonstrate that capability later on in a video presentation. But at a high level, essentially what we're looking at is the supplier invoices can come in, the robot can pick it up, it passes it over to the document processor from UiPath, where we then interact with the Google Document Understanding AI to be able to get the extracted value out. If we need to perform that validation step, that begins that human-in-the-loop process. And then the robot can pick up the document afterwards, after the humans validated or refined the data, to be able to carry it over into the back-end systems. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Robbie to talk about how we're actually applying it in his environment.
Thank you, Mark. So with co-innovation with Google as well as UiPath, here I'm going to demonstrate a sample representative use case that we have experimented with and have proven the use case. And here we are seeing a sample that is as close as possible to the representation of every feature that we just heard from Mark, like ranging from unstructured data to the computer-generated, machine-generated data is also there. Handwritten signatures are there. Seals, approval seals are there. And within the seal, again, there is unstructured handwritten information is there. So different types of unstructured information is available. So gleaning information, insights from that unstructured data is this use case. Essentially, we have here all of that information, and most importantly, how the bot from the UiPath platform is able to dissect that information, different types of notations, and is able to progress forward. And when it works on that information, it makes an API call to the Google Document Understanding AI feature, and then the response is coming back, as we heard from Mark, in a JSON structure format. And based on that information, to a certain level of confidence factor, we're able to decipher the unstructured content information, whether it is the key value pairs, including invoice number, the date, the supplier details, particularly the most important one, the transportation number, and number of similar key value pairs are extracted. And it is intelligent extraction. And more importantly, it's the line item detail with the table parsing, which is another very important and powerful feature from this Google Document Understanding AI API call. And with that, knowing that extracted information and the quality and its confidence level is extremely important. We could predefine certain thresholds, and then once the threshold is met, the bot can proceed automatically to update the back office systems, whether it is ERP, SAP, or any other back office system accordingly. Like the swivel chair type of information is not required anymore by the humans. The bot is able to do that. You can see the bottom picture, how that is dissected back with the response into the JSON structure. Every element is dissected there, and we have that information. And the threshold, if it is not met, then we have the opportunity for human in the loop and to override that information, do a side-by-side comparison like this. You have the original invoice as well as the parsed information side by side. And then the human, the analyst, is able to make an override if needed based on the threshold not being met by the API call returning the JSON structure, which is seen here in the picture. And after the review, the bot can continue once the human in the loop is updating, and then the next step, the bot can proceed and then update the back office systems as required. Here, like I mentioned earlier, parsing the table structure is very important. One powerful feature here worth mentioning is it's not per specific table structure that you have to templatize. No. This one is a powerful computer vision-based intelligent extraction feature in that API call we make. And that's why it's worth mentioning that parsed information is shown in the UiPath Studio on the left side image. On the right-hand side is the actual invoice on which the extraction was done. And the validation station is providing that view, and then if a human in the loop is there, all those fields can be updated and overridden. If it is meeting the threshold, then the system proceeds to the next step automatically. And also additional feature that Mark mentioned is robots can use intelligent classification. There is inbuilt feature for geography-based detection or candidate for audit kind of detection. All these are classifications that are available in the platform with UiPath platform, and then you could dissect that information and classify them into these kind of categories in the picture we are seeing here as the representation of categorization. For example, on the right-hand side, you can see after the threshold, certain amount level, you want to automatically have an audit mentioned. So the bot catches it, and the platform, UiPath platform, automatically mentions that it is candidate for auditing. Those type of features are all built in. This is ML-based, AI, computer vision-based, combinatorial use case between the Google platform and the UiPath platform. And we did the co-innovation with both the partners And with that, the benefits are of numerous cases, right? I mean, it is not just the structured, unstructured information dissection that we saw just for invoices. Honestly, the benefits are much more bigger than that. It reduces the manual effort phenomenally, reduces the invoice processing time, because now the bot is doing in an automated manner, like hundreds of thousands of documents processing in some cases. Ensures the data is reviewed and validated by humans. And also, accuracy is not going to be an issue, because here the bot is the one which is actually acting on it. And also, another powerful feature is you're actually able to glean that information and catch it if it is in error prior hand before updating the back office systems like SAPs and other things, because here it is upfront known. And it allows humans and bots to work together faster and with higher performance over time. And as an extension, this could be extended to various other domains like supply chain and in the warehouse and various other places. And with that, I would pass it back to Mark for the video to demonstrate these features.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Ravi. So the best part, if we could start that, actually, let me tee this up. So the best part is to actually see it in action. So you saw the slideware, which was great, but we'll actually demonstrate how these capabilities work in the platform. In the first instance, we'll go ahead and get this started. If we could roll the video, it would be great. So here we're showing how we can actually start the UiPath robot that's already been built to be able to look into a particular file directory and see that there's documents to be processed. We have a number there that we can take, and we can actually upload those to Google Cloud if we wanted to have some storage up in the cloud for that particular document. It can then be further processed by the document understanding AI, and then we can determine whether or not we want to actually look at that document based upon the extraction results. So if we never had seen the document before, and this is for the first time that we saw an invoice, for example, we may not have all the features from the extraction associated with the taxonomy that's associated with invoices. So the human can go in very quickly and actually highlight the actual aspects of the invoice number, the purchase order number, the date, who the supplier is, the details with respect to address information, bill to and ship to, the typical common header type of information that we would see, as well as the subtotal and the total information. So it's a very quick process, again, how the robot can make that available for the human to be able to do this in a very easy UI type of way and then be able to complete the process. So another example is, what if we actually meet the minimum threshold value? So if we uploaded the second document, it goes into Google Cloud, into buckets, then we can see that the document understanding AI is capable of extracting the features there. If it meets our criteria for the minimum threshold level, then we wouldn't necessarily have to have that human loop process to be able to exist. The document could continue along its way. If we have another document that we take through here to demonstrate the table capability as well, as Ravi pointed out, that's a really powerful feature here to be able to actually parse tables. The confidence level might be a little bit lower, but what you can see here from the invoice is the detailed level data that's coming out of the invoice itself. So that's a particularly challenging task to take. Oftentimes it's pre-scripted or templatized, as Ravi mentioned. Here we're just using computer vision and the ML type of capabilities to be able to detect that information, parse it out correctly, and again, through validation station, the human is basically able to see the extraction side by side with the actual document itself for that verification. So another thing that's interesting is just to see, what does a robot see? So there's a JSON payload. We can take that data and naturally we can feed it into something like Google Sheets if we wanted to, and we could see all the data that's coming out of the actual extraction process itself in a human legible type of way, as well as the detailed table data that comes out of that. Or we could use this and analyze it further if we had some reporting or analytics dashboards that we wanted to be able to put up against this data. But more importantly, probably what we want to do is we want to take that invoice data, and we want the robot again now to pick up that data and start to log into SAP on our behalf. So the robot's basically then authenticating with user and password credentials here, automatically knows that it's in the task to be able to input invoice data. It can go to the appropriate screen within SAP to be able to input that data and put all the corresponding information that it extracted from that process automatically. So again, the robot is actually performing these tasks that a human would typically do in the environment without, if we could stop it here, it would be great, without having to necessarily go in and perform that function itself. So what we've demonstrated here really is an incredible end-to-end type of capability. This particular example is for invoices, but it can be applied to any type of enterprise document, unstructured, semi-structured, and structured. And that's another powerful aspect of the platform, is that it can be truly used at an enterprise level. And just finally, to land here, we have different graphings that Ravi showed before as a classification technique. Our time is out. We really enjoyed speaking with you, and thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mark and Ravi. That was an awesome presentation. And thanks a lot for being a great partner. So next, I would like to introduce Avi, SVP of Product and Engineering at Automation Anywhere, and Gans, VP of Digital Experience and Insights at Infogain.
Hey, thanks, Francisco. All right, guys. So we are from, I'm from Automation Anywhere. And we are, again, one of the leading vendors in this entire space. We are the ones who actually coined the term digital workforce. And the idea is just like a human, you actually execute on things or do work, then you think about things, you analyze things, and you go drink tea or coffee. Well, there is a digital equivalent to that, and that's actually what our product portfolio consists of. So we have our core enterprise RPA platform. The bots they can work with 400 different types of frameworks. They can actually, the way I put it is bots can see a couple levels deeper than a human can, and they are less likely to make mistakes, right? So the core RPA platform can work with any of the applications that are out there. Then we actually have had a cognitive component to our product line since the last 4 years. And we can, again, we have several applications of that, including understanding documents as well as processing documents. We have a bot store that is public and open, where you can find 30 to 40 different domains with all kinds of different documents being processed. We also have a smart BI platform that actually gives you real-time, not just operational insights about the bots, what each of the bot is up to, all kinds of bot security analysis as well. But what we do is we also work with the content that is processed by the bots, and that gives you real-time business insight. So we believe that RPA can actually play a major role in for you to spot business opportunities, and it's not just about cutting down process costs and cycle times. So this together is the digital workforce. The digital workforce is available to you in our bot store by process or by digital workers. If you look at any business process, it consists of these steps with respect to data. You are either capturing the data, or you're enriching it, validating it, processing it, reconciling it, and analyzing and reporting on it, right? So traditional RPA, while it goes all the way, while it tackles majority of the steps, AI is still needed in several different aspects. So we have AI embedded in the core platform. So core computer vision based on deep learning that will actually, even if we don't understand the framework, even if we treat the screen as a giant image, the bots are still able to work 100% reliably. But we have expanded this and formed this true partnership between RPA and AI to be able to embed any AI models. So one of the highlights of the platform is the fact that you can actually embed traditional, you can embed AI models from providers such as Google, as well as you can have custom AI models that you build yourself. So for example, running a Python script and so on, right? So we are delighted to be here. We have partnered with Google at a very high level. And it is not just about using Google AI, but it's also about running bots in the Google Cloud. And finally, humans interacting with the bots through your Google Productivity Suite. So we have a very interesting use case here, and here to talk about that use case on how we have leveraged the Google Computer Vision API to prepare for 10x growth at a customer where achieving this kind of transaction growth was just not possible without using bots. And so here to talk more about it is Gans from our partner Infogain.
Thank you, Abhijit. Quick note about Infogain. We are a 30-year-old software engineering firm. We are based down in Los Gatos, and we've got offices all over the world. We are partners with some of the leading technology companies, and we assist Fortune 500 companies on their journey to digital. We are partners with Google and with Automation Anywhere, and we'll talk about a very interesting case study that we've got here for our customers. What we're going to talk about is a customer here, which is basically the world's largest travel marketplace, and they've got more than 400 million guest arrivals per year on their web properties and mobile properties. And one of the interesting problems they had was the customer segment where you had more than 10 properties that you wanted to transact on their platform. These properties, if you ever went through their website, you would see that there's almost 10 pages of data that you have to provide in order to list your property on their platform and go through all this stuff. So highly manual process, took a lot of time. It took up to 30 days for the entire process for your property to be listed, of which 5 to 7 days was just the data part of it. And though there was a lot of onboarding assistance provided, the whole onboarding assistance was provided manually. So you had to call up a team, the team would go through it and stuff. What was causing a lot of friction in this experience for the customers was basically the fact was, because this was a manual process, they were seeing a very low activation rate. Activation is the process from when you sign up to have your property on the site to actually doing the transactions on the site. And that was in the low 30s as an activation rate. And that's primarily because of, A, being a manual process, you had poor data quality. So, you had a lot of errors in the data that was being processed. There was incomplete attribution, so you couldn't run those metadata to run campaigns and promotions and search. And this process was being done on a much smaller scale of volumes, and the customer was anticipating 10x growth, and this was just not a scalable process for them going forward. And when we worked with Google and Automation Anywhere to help this customer, there was one simple goal that they had, which was, how do we optimize the conversion funnel? Which means if I sign up number of customers on this site, I need them transacting more and more. That was the primary thing. So if you look at the conversion funnel, there are 3 steps in the conversion funnel. One is you have to create a listing on their site with their property, and that was something that was taking a lot of time, like we talked about. Second is, how do you enrich this listing with amenities, data, and other data so that you can activate this listing and put it in front of more users out there? And the third thing was, how do you create more and more better data so that you can run promotions and search? So this was the goal with which you did it. And that's where we first brought in the robots that Automation Anywhere was, and we hosted that on Google Cloud. And we basically had the robots doing the listing creation and also the gathering the data so that a lot of that can be automated and someone does not have to do it manually. And once that listing was created with all the data in it, it went to a human person, a team out there, which approved the data, put the listing data out there. And once that was done, we used the API integration into Google Cloud to basically transfer the data to the web property that our customer held. And once that was done, the listing was happening for the website. And this was earlier being all done manually without APIs and without a cloud infrastructure, is all being done automated. Once we did that and we started seeing some benefits for our customer, we moved on to the next stage of the project, which is basically the fact that you've got something automated, you've got something, how do we scale this automation, right? So scaling the automation had 3 basic parts to it. As you can see, the first thing is, in the first phase, we already improved the turnaround time, and we made it a self-service. So we also integrated Jira into the Google Cloud infrastructure so that customers can look at their own tickets and figure out where the property was in the whole process of onboarding. But we also wanted to move this to international scale, move it to more countries, And that's where Google Cloud's whole scale and infrastructure came into play. And for them to roll it out to multiple countries was much easier. And the last stage of the product was to basically use Google's AI services to see how we can monetize the metadata that we can pull out of the properties, and how do we move it to new product categories and new language categories, in the sense of how can we use NLP, how can we use language translation services that Google has, so that we can move this. And this was the roadmap that we used working with Google and with Automation Anywhere to move the customer to a larger scale. What we particularly used about, and I want to talk about here, is we actually embarked on a very fast and effective integration of AutoML vision models into the existing robots and the process. This is a whole project that we did in 8 weeks that goes to show the ease of use and of the AutoML product. And we basically took all the properties that they had. We took 1,000 images. So each property comes with some images. And in the previous world, someone had to sit at the images and look at each image and see which amenity was in the image, right? And amenities are very important if you ever tried doing a vacation rental or a hotel, because you want to see the property, you want to see what it is in it, whether it's got a microwave, whether it's got a fridge, whether it's got a bathtub, and that's so more so in the international market. So we took the 1,000 images, we did the training on the images, and we did multiple iterations, 5+ iterations on the training. And each iteration took around 2 to 4 hours of model training time to do that. So it was fairly swift, fairly good to do it. And we looked at 3 to 4 major amenities out there: TV, bathtub, and a king bed, because that's based on these amenities. The pricing recommendation engine of a customer could actually recommend more effective prices that you should be charging for your properties, right? And in 8 weeks, we were able to demonstrate a 90% accuracy and upwards of 90% across all categories that we see out there. And that's where the AutoML vision was not only fast and efficient, but it was very effective in generating the data that the customer wanted. The customer had, if you look at what the customer was looking at, going back to the problem statement that existed out there, one of the things was this customer was doing this entire process manually, which means they were probably taking a month to do this entire process, of which just the data capture part of the property was 5 to 7 days, right? And in that 1 month, if you know anything about properties, in that 1 month you lose your customer because he's focused onto something else and stuff. And that's where the activation problem really came in, right? Because they were, in a month you were losing them, you didn't know where the property was. And activation was also missing because, like I mentioned earlier, the amenities data was not there. A lot of metadata was not there for them to promote their property among the search engines and promotions and stuff like that. So by integrating Google's AI services and APIs and Automation Anywhere's robots, we were able to demonstrate a 100% increase in the activation rate, which is direct revenues for the customer that exists out there, right? So that's something that we were able to do. Their total cost went down 40%. I mean, being a digital unicorn, they really never worried about cost, but it's very important as you scale the process. You want to make sure that per transaction and per property, your cost goes down. So we were able to demonstrate a 40% reduction in cost. But I think to me, the most important fact was, and which was causing the biggest friction among the users, was we were able to turn around, the turnaround time was reduced by almost 70 to 50%, which is basically the fact that something which took 5 to 7 days was being done in 2 days. This is very important for them because they could get back to their property managers fast and tell them that, hey, we signed up you, you're on live and stuff like that. And last but not the least, I think as you move a process to scale, they were looking at upwards of 150,000 properties over a calendar year to scale up to 1 million plus and stuff. It's very important that they go about doing this in a self-service model. So for example, if there are exceptions happening, if there are things that are, something needs to be changed, something needs to be done offline, we really put in a self-service automation module in place. And this is where, the ability of integration with Google Cloud and Jira and the RPA robots really came to speed. It was not a custom project. We could do that very quickly. It did not require, generating custom APIs and stuff. So that's something that we did. And by doing all this, like you see out there, I talked about it, it's 96% accuracy and 90% recall is what we came up with the training model. So this is now being implemented across all countries. And the future state is we're going to increase it across multiple amenities so that, as you go across using these properties, you will see that this is going in a much faster way than you can. This is one of the use cases that we have seen with our customers, and Google's object detection AI was very useful to it. I'm just going to turn it on to Abhijit to talk about other cases that we can come across.
This is amazing, right? I mean, what can bots do next? I think what I like about this is it's the application of computer vision, but it's also the realization of quick results. Given that this entire project was done in about 8 weeks, it really prepared the customer to be to scale their number of transactions with bots. And that's one of the key value props that RPA brings to the table, is that RPA plus AI will give you a completely new level of ROI, because RPA helps AI by bringing in 3 ways. It brings data, it brings training to AI, as well as it brings the business context to any of these services. So that's just one of the use cases. We have plenty more that are actually scattered across different verticals. So if you want to learn more about this, please visit us at our booth. We also have a video of this process with the bots in action, where how they actually go from that beginning of the property listing all the way to recognizing all of the different objects in there and being able to provide a response, and then human in the loop, right? So the same concepts of having the confidence threshold and all specified, and if it is below a certain threshold, a human needs to be in the loop to be able to review and train the bot further, right? So this is basically AI as it learns, becomes better, and the bots can actually manage more and more by themselves, requiring little or no supervision eventually. Like I said, visit us in our booth. It's booth 1660 in Moscone South down here, and we can talk to you about several other such use cases. All right, thank you guys for attending. Francisco, I don't know if you wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Just to wrap up, I wanted to invite you to go to cloud.google.com/document-understanding-AI. If you want to learn more about these capabilities, sign up and be connected to one of our Prime partners. Thank you.